our administrators back in. Get used to this stream. Need a motion to approve the resignation of Donna Berlinski, bus driver, resignation for the purpose of retirement effective August 28th, 2020. Donna first, Janine second, all in favor? Brad. Motion to approve the appointment of Sarah Mayville, earth science teacher, 4-year probationary appointment in the 10-year area of science, 7 through 12, step 10 of the WCBTA bargaining agreement effective September 1st, 2020. Jessica first, Jane second, all in favor? No?
No.
Okay.
And I'd like it stated in the minutes that I'm not voting against the candidate, I'm voting against the step that was granted.
Motion to approve Tricia Clark, mathematics teacher, 3-year probationary appointment in the 10-year of mathematics 7 through 12, step 18 of the teacher bargaining agreement effective September 1st, 2020. Should that be 4-year probation?
Sure.
Oh, okay, September 1st, 2020. Janine first, Jessica second, all in favor? No?
Same reason.
Okay, you. Appointment of Donna Berlinski, substitute bus driver, substitute monitor for the CSEA bargaining agreement effective August 28th, 2020. Janine first. Jessica second, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, motion to approve the tax levy in the amount of $5,139,357. Carson first, Peter second, all in favor? Need a motion to approve refunding bond resolution of the West Cannon Valley Central School District dated August 10th, 2020. Authorizing the refunding of all or a portion of certain outstanding serial bonds, stating the plan of refunding, authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $3,675,000 refunding bonds, and determining other matters in connection therewith. Janine first. Thank you. Need a motion to accept the resignation of Mr. Gage effective August 4th, 2020 from the board. Shauna first, Janine second, all in favor? Any? Okay, thank you. Okay, now we're gonna move on to our discussion items. DJ, any reopening update plan, please?
Yeah, so want to talk a little bit more on the reopening plans tonight, especially for those listening in virtually at this point in time. There have been some updates. I think at this point in time, everybody's got an opportunity to see, or at least listen to the governor's announcement on Friday, which has permitted the districts across the state at this point in time, as of August 10th, to open the school year in September. So with the reopening update we gave at the last special meeting for everybody, we're continuing to move forward with what we talked about at that meeting, with some updates and changes and things like that. And I want to go over those. Members of the board, all of you have two different documents. One on the top says the New York State Department of Health, looks like this. And then there's a reopening highlights packet that's here that kind of summarizes some important concepts that I want to go over tonight with everybody. So a couple things happened Friday with the reopening that I want to make sure everybody's aware of. The reopening plans were required to be, as we talked about, published on July 31st and posted on our website. You'll see today they released a number of districts who either did not post it or did not post enough information. Those were released today. Ours has been good, and we're not on that list. Ours is submitted, been accepted, all of those kinds of things. So we're up to date at this point with our reopening document. But as I mentioned, this is also a living document. It's going to be updated as we get new regulations, as we have to adjust things, as we get student numbers, enrollment options, and things like that. And I'll talk a little bit about that tonight. I want to break it down a little bit by sections tonight so that we can ask questions. I want to start with the Department of Health and the governor first. A couple of things that came out of Friday's meeting, or Friday's announcement, aside from a permitting in-person instruction, is there's some very specific things that need to be added to our plan. And I say added, they need to be pulled out of the plans, detailed so that they're in separate sections for people to click on. One of them is the remote learning. So the remote learning, the responsible party will accomplish remote learning, especially considering the inequity gaps. This must detail outline the numbers of students, the remote learning, asynchronous and synchronous learning opportunities, internet and device access for students, alternatives that are available where we're having internet and connectivity issues. So all of that's in the plan right now. We've got to pull that section out and have some specific details that are in that so that people can click on what the remote part of the instruction will be. So for example, we've addressed already the device issue. Everybody here is going to go on one device. That will be one item that's in there. We're hoping that we've addressed the connectivity issue as we get Google hotspots and get into areas where the connectivity is not very good, and we're going to help them out just like we did at that point. The asynchronous versus synchronous is a term you're going to hear quite a bit. That's the in-person live instruction is synchronous. And the asynchronous, the other option for everything is that the work that they're doing independently, where we're getting attendance as well. So those details of when they're logging in, when students are working on assignments, when students are doing meets, all of that needs to have attendance totals with it. So even when the student is not in person, and obviously some of our students will be remote, they're going to be required to have daily attendance and daily attendance for periods and things like that.
The same amount as being period, that the same amount.
Yeah, so there's attendance every day. Yeah, so for each class and how we set that up and how that schedule gets developed is ongoing right now with our principals. And a lot of that's going to depend on populations, who's remote, who's doing the alternate days, those kinds of things. We have all the forms out to everybody. They all need to be back into the offices by Friday. Yes. By Friday. So we're getting them already, so we're starting to get numbers. I think we're going to have a mix for sure of remote and people that are going to do the hybrid in person in the high school, and probably a mix of all three in the elementary, which I'll talk about in a few minutes again. So all those things will have to be detailed out. The bigger part, I'm going to learn a lot more about this week. So we have language in our plan right now that deals with testing and contact tracing in regards to this. We have to have those pulled out of the plan in a separate link as well, with specific details how that's going to be done. So in our plan and in everybody's plan, the guidance that we've received thus far is the Department of Health is going to guide us through this, as I said that. It sounds like we're going to have a little bit more specifics to that from the Department of Health. So we're meeting, the region's meeting with the Department of Health tomorrow morning. And hopefully we're going to come up with a plan tomorrow with the Department of Health. It's kind of universal around here as to the process of testing, who's doing it, how quick we're getting the results, process the school would have to do in that case, and our response, and what is our specific responsibilities in tracing any sort of positive test. So I'm going to say an example. This is not a definitive example or a clear example of what's going to happen, so you can just take this with a grain. So one of the questions that I want to know tomorrow is if we do get a positive case reported, is the immediate shutdown for 14 days or 10 days or whatever it is, are we shutting the school down? Because if that's the guidance that they're going to give to me, then that's going to go in the plan that says one positive case, this place is shut down, we go straight remote for 14 days, and the Department of Health decides if we're going to reopen again. Not saying that's going to happen, but those are the kind of details that might come out into this whole thing. Or they might say, we have a positive case, and these are the steps the district has to have. So those right now are open because we were told basically that the Department of Health will just guide us through each individual situation. Sounds like we have to have specific protocol with the Department of Health. There was some confusion, and again, I don't know if this is, I think it's confusion that the schools were going to be doing testing and we would have to have COVID tests in the building and things like that. I don't believe that's the case. I believe there has to be a direct definitive plan in regards to the testing and the actual steps in tracing a positive announcement. So that's that. The other part of this are the public meetings. Tonight is one of those for people to hear the reopening. We obviously did one beforehand. We'll have at least one more, if not two more opportunities for the public to comment. Those are recovered, or those are requirements, I should say, that we have coming up. I'll work with the principals as soon as tomorrow to get those organized for parent input. There also has to be another, even though we've been working along with teachers and staff and holding a lot of meetings, there's another requirement that we have to have another specific teacher meeting with our faculty and staff. So we'll work to schedule that as well. So before I get into the highlights, is there any questions on some of the new requirements that were released Friday that we have to address at this point in time off of the original plan? Any questions on what I said?
In the remote learning, how do you handle if the teacher that's teaching that class gives a quiz or test?
Yeah, so assessment is a real challenge when it comes to remote learning and how we do assessment and have validity to those assessments. So there's some different situations where we can create assessments in some cases that are not just straight multiple choice. There may be some more written response things that they have to do. There may be some different types and forms of assessment that we have to do. But if you're looking at it as a true sense of handing a test out in a class and having the child complete that and then hand that back into the teacher and so forth, that's certainly a challenge with remote learning for sure. That was the problem from March to June a little bit, is coming up with a definitive plan on how we're going to grade, how we're going to assess, and how we're going to validate the grades. So I circle talk to you a little bit, Mr. Conway, because I don't know the specific answer to that right now. It's something we got to really work to do our best with.
I just asked that because I don't think it's fair if the kids in school are taking a test and no books, no nothing, and the other one, you sit home, you have everything laid right in front of you. Or somebody else could do it for you.
Yeah, so there's certainly, no matter what school we're in with that type of thing, there's certainly validity to that. So, we've got to work out some systems and so forth to the best of our ability. I think we'll have a perfect grading system for remote learning now, but I think we'll do our best to try to make sure that happens.
Would they be graded? Number grades?
They'll need to be graded, yeah. So right now,
A, B, C, D, F?
So
are they going to need
our regular grade. Right now, I have our regular grading policy. We did the emergency grading policy from March to June because we had to improve that here. Right now, I'm going back to start the year with our current policy on grading. If things aren't working out the way we hope they'll work out, then we may have to revisit, that and see how the grading will go with that. But for right now, I'm moving forward, hoping that we can come up with a system that'll support our current grading. Any other questions on the new announcements? I'll go through the highlights here in a minute here for everybody, including people watching at home.
I got a quick question.
Yes,
It's not part of the highlights, but student schedules, do you know when the kids will be getting those?
Yeah.
Or families or
Yes.
teachers and class or supply lists?
So if I could, Ms. Michael, when I go through this, that's one of my topics in the reopening thing. I'll talk to you right about that when we get that. Okay, so on the reopening highlights, I just want to review some main points. The plan is 50 pages long, okay, and that's posted, and everybody's welcome to go through that. It's very detailed in terms of mandates, regulations, assurances. But I wanted to pull out for tonight's meeting, I wanted to talk a little bit about some important points in each section, just so that we're aware of that. I mentioned this already, the family and community engagement. We had our public forum on July 30th, which I thought was pretty successful. I thank everyone listening for the questions on the board for their input during that. It was very helpful. It was productive, I thought, beyond what I even hoped it would be. So I'm thankful for July 30th meeting. As I mentioned, the new requirements require additional opportunities for the public and community input. One of them is tonight, and we will have to have a couple of more of those between now and August 21st, just as per the new requirements by the governor. If you have questions tonight, again, you can email ksheets@westcanada.org. I'll do my best to answer as many as I can tonight. If you're watching virtually, again, this is ongoing since our last meeting. I want to thank everybody who's reached out to me. If I haven't gotten back to you just yet, I will get back to you. I think I've gotten back to most people with their questions. But continue to email me and call me, and I'll answer questions on an ongoing basis. We'll continue to use our website, our social media, our in-home mailings. We have another in-home mailing that will be going out soon in regards to transportation, so we'll be looking for that. Emails, texts, and any up-to-date information that I can get out to you. As I mentioned, there'll also be there's already meetings that we've had. We'll have additional internal staff meetings as we come up, and again, there'll be at least one of those official ones between now and August 21st to gain additional input. Is there anybody that has any questions on how we're handling right now family and community engagement, things we're doing in terms of trying to get information out, anything that you'd like me to change, updating the plan? Is there anything that's I'm hoping to get a newsletter out before the end. I am going to get a newsletter. We're dragging until the end of the month here to try to get the most updated information in the newsletter. So typically I'd send that next week or two, but I'm going to probably drag a little bit till the end of August just so the information doesn't disappear before I get it out to everybody. Okay, so quickly through the health and safety, and again, these are always questions that everybody has in terms of what we're doing for this. There's 20 assurances under the health and safety category. Some of them require the written protocols. I mentioned a few of those already that have been added that require written protocols. Specifically the testing and the contact tracing. We're going to be working as soon as tomorrow morning with the Department of Health to develop those detailed plans. As soon as we have those written up, they'll be posted so that everybody can see those. Specifically identifying the protocols in the event of a positive case. That's always the question. Probably the number one health and safety question I've gotten from parents at this point is what's going to happen if there is a positive case. I think what I could say right now on that is I think everybody's going to be a work in progress here. I think everybody needs to be prepared for all different things. I think as parents, the community needs to be prepared for us to have shutdowns at times if you get a positive case. It may be for periods of time that are more than a couple of days. I don't know the answers to those just yet, but those things kind of, just like they did in March, could happen on the fly with all of this. We've sent out the parent-student surveys, obviously, before the first forum. We've also got the parent-student informational sheets that are out from both the high school and the elementary. Those, as we mentioned, are due on Friday in terms of option choices. I mentioned this in the last, we will be temperature checking at each school, at school each day. That's a requirement that we're going to put in place. That's in our plan. The logistics of that, we're continuing to look through it. Again, it'll depend on how many kids we have in person, how many doors we need, and how many check stations we're going to need at each place. But we do have some plans in place for that. But please know that temperature checks will be done. Masks will be worn, and this is always the question. It's the question on the news. Masks are going to be worn if the 6 feet cannot be maintained for an extended period of time. Okay, and that's a clarity that I want to make with people. The reason I'm saying that masks are going to be worn an extensive amount of time is because when we do instruction and we do teaching and we work with little children, standing up in front of the room with social distancing doesn't always work for those of you that have children at home and elementary kids. You're going to be walking in within those 6 feet at times. You're going to have to help them with things. So on and off masks all the time is going to create a dynamic that's going to be very challenging when you break that 6-foot system. So there's going to be times where the mask can be on. We're going to do mask breaks where we have to maintain our 6-foot distancing, and we're going to work with the kids and the teachers to do that. I do think everybody needs to understand, those that are here, that there's going to be a lot of times you're going to be wearing masks because it's going to be times where you just can't keep that 6-foot distance always in place. Cleaning protocols and schedules are being developed. I wrote on here, the question was asked, and like done by one of our board members, are we going to need additional cleaners? So we're working on our schedules right now. One of the things I want to talk about tonight is the CARES Act. So the CARES money, and Kelly, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is approximately $175,000. Now, when we did the budget, I think people will remember the pandemic relief number that was in the budget line from the state budget. Well, that's what the CARES money is, really. Okay? So the CARES money is $175,000 cut by the state, reimbursed back in by the federal government. Problem with it is it's earmarked for these items that we're talking about: the cleaning, the technology, the instruction, everything. It has to be all connected to things that COVID impacted. So all of these things that we have to put into place, whether we needed additional technology, whether we needed all these PPE and cleaning supplies, all of this stuff's going under that category for that. And cleaners are another piece of that people are using to maintain some of the regulations, do the bathrooms, to clean classrooms as much as we want to clean them, to clean the high touch areas as much as we want to do. We're certainly going to have to readjust, and we're looking at the potential of additional cleaners being posted and brought into here. So that's something I certainly want to talk about with everybody tonight. And again, I just mentioned federal funding with that. So again, our thoughts on additional cleaners if we need to go that route in here. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
Will students walk through the halls? Are they going to go from class to class? I'm talking high school.
Okay. So for middle school, high school, there will be times in certain areas where there will be requirements to pass.
So they
Especially,
will have to wear a mask.
we'll have to wear a mask to pass, yes.
Who's going to enforce that?
We are.
Okay.
Us.
What about the teacher standing in the doorway?
Yeah, also, yeah. I mean, it'll be a staff, yes. Yeah, we have to enforce that. One of the things that's going to be, there won't be bells here. We talked about this today with Rob that night. We're going to be creating staggered passing. We're going to pass grade levels. We're going to pass certain sections. We're organizing hallways, so they're going from one room to the next. They might only be walking a little distance and getting into their next room. 7th and 8th grade, we're trying to get basically down in that wing, so they're just down there. So we know that we're going to have to transition some. We know that everybody's going to wear masks while they're doing that. We're not going to have full hallways. There's no lockers, so we're not going to the locker. We're even going to shut down bathrooms in between so that we can regulate bathroom trips out of the classrooms so that when kids move, we're going to regulate the bathrooms and how many are in the restrooms at that time. So there's all little details like that that'll be in place. So the first, like I said, once we get back to school here, for the kids that are here in person, there'll be a lot of procedural things that we're going to have to do in those first few days, at least, to get them up to speed
What's
with
the
that.
protocol? If you're in one room, they gotta pass to another room. You have to clean that room before the next cohort comes in.
Yeah, so that's not part of the CDC guidelines.
No?
That's not a mandate to re-clean. Would we like to do as much cleaning as we can in between transitions from one room to the next? Yes.
And if it was a
So when it's feasible, we're going to do as much cleaning above and beyond as we can in certain areas. So we're looking at stationing people in different parts of the building, cleaning staff, so forth with that.
What about restroom use? Do they have to clean in between each use?
Yeah,
Is that a mandate?
So that's not a mandate, but again, those are
Best
things
practice.
we're looking to try to keep those and limit to either 1 or 2 people at most in that restroom at a time, preferably one at a time. Having certain restrooms, we have to have certain restrooms, a number of restrooms available, all those kinds of things. So, restrooms in those areas are certainly areas that we want to be cleaning pretty regularly throughout the day. So, yeah. Now the good news is, on the other end of it, and Cross that's working on this as well, is because we're doing so much cleaning during the day, and there isn't any activity at this point in time at night in the building until we're allowed to do these sort of activities. The night cleaning is not as extensive as it is. So the hour shifts, we won't need people here. So we might be able to shift some people down, so we're looking at, at most 2 new cleaners, but if we can get away with 1 new cleaner by shifting, I just want you to know that we may bring that back to you at some point as long as everybody's in support. And that would be in the cares. And that's just to try to create a structure of day to night cleaning and so forth. So, we don't need to clean, and Kelly, you correct me if I'm wrong, till 11 o'clock at night if we're not doing night activities, especially when we're cleaning all day long. And then we're doing all the disinfecting and things like that at night.
I mean, you're gonna have to know what areas haven't been cleaned.
Yeah, oh yeah, everything's gonna be clean.
Yeah, but I mean, they're not gonna be doing windows or door handles every minute of the day.
Yeah.
So we
Right.
still would need those people at night.
You still do, yes.
There's a check sheet for where they cleaned, what they cleaned, what time they cleaned it.
So that's a good point. So everything's logged too, so we have to keep logs of everything that's clean and at what time it was cleaned so that we know. And there's definitely, you're 100% correct, Mr. We still, it's not that we don't have to clean, it's not like we went all day, we didn't do much other than clean cafeteria stuff, and then we did this whole, we're gonna be doing a lot of cleaning during the day as well, so. And the night cleaning is a little bit different too, that's more with nobody in the building where we can do the disinfecting and sanitizing more so during the day.
Elementary masks, are those rooms gonna be set up so that they're 6 foot apart?
Yep.
So therefore, they would not have to wear the masks all day?
So that's kind of the situation with the teacher. So if you're in desk and we're maintaining that 6 foot, those would be good times for mask breaks. Okay. If we're working or we're working with kids and things like that, and the teacher has to go help, I'll just first grade. Realistically, we're not going to have all these first graders sitting 6 feet apart in their chair all the time. The teacher's staying so far away from them. They're going to have to assist them at times. So the masks are going to be on a lot as we're working through rooms and doing those kinds of things. So during that day, we're going to create situations where we're a little more stationary and where we can create those mask breaks. The reality is, there's going to be a lot of time when masks are going to be worn, just by the way that the schools work. We're not built to do this. So, any other questions on the health and safety? There's required surveys. We're getting those ready for the students and parents. Still have to complete them. Staff will have to complete them. That they, that they temperature checked at home. That they, haven't been, around somebody they think has symptoms. All those kinds of surveys need to be done. We're getting those ready as we speak. And then obviously our temperature checks, our isolation rooms, etc. Go ahead.
So surveys have to be done daily?
Yeah, so we're supposed to do them daily. Yeah,
Is there a way to do one line?
Yeah. So we're working on a system where we can do them at home, and then we'll have a list when they get here of the kids who didn't do them before they got here, and then we'll make them do them when they get here. So we're working on a couple things. Little kids are going to be a little different with that. So we're working on some different things, maybe even some like paper coupon type things or things that are a little bit more creative to get those done. But we're technically supposed to survey everybody, make sure that they haven't done that.
Even if some parents are tech savvy and choose, because a lot of them have their smartphones and their health survey
Sure.
before we go to work.
Yep. We're going to create as much access to that as we can for anybody, and then we'll cover up whoever's not
Yep.
with that.
How about the places where all those kids are babysitters and all that stuff?
So,
Like, that's a greater problem.
so
They get their temperature taken and all that before they get there, and then they're gonna get on the bus, or the babysitter gotta take them. I mean, what's going on with that?
yeah, so my hope would be, Mr. Marco, that the temperature checks, all that, the symptomatic stuff would be done before they were dropped off. So that the daycare wouldn't be receiving somebody that was symptomatic at that point in time. There is a lot of cooperation and assurances by people at home that they're, going to be overprotective more so than ever of their kids that are symptomatic. And that's kind of what I said in the last meeting. If you're trying to squeeze them in and they come in with a lot of symptoms, or the student comes in with a temperature, you're only going to get as far as the beginning of the day here, and you're going to be gone. So we need the help of everybody outside so that we don't have a lot of situations. Obviously, there could be situations where somebody's fine in the morning. We're going to get a child that gets sick. We know that. But on the same token, you know, the idea right now to say, toughen up, you're all right, get to school is gonna be, gotta be put on hold just a little bit here because you're gonna get sent home, in those cases. So, yeah. So there's definitely a cooperation level from the outside.
I'm just saying, I mean,
But then they
have
wouldn't
one or
test
two kids, so I mean, you can only put so many kids on a bus, so
Yeah.
on a bus just as babysitter's house.
So we worked on some bus routing. I'll get to in a second. That's the transportation part that we're mailing out this week is going to create location stuff. So we're going to have to see. So if we have some daycare locations, yeah, there could be a bus that drops off and runs back to Middleville or Newport and just picks up a couple of daycares and brings them back. Definitely could be part of a routing thing. The closer places are obviously easier to run back out and get. The more distant places are going to get picked up earlier and brought in because you can't just whip back out to Schuyler and Norway too quickly. So we need to get as many kids from Schuyler and Norway in here as we can, and then start to work on the kids closer because we can make a few runs to keep the buses there. So those are things we're working on. Any other questions on health and safety at this point in time? Okay, so child nutrition, I talked a little bit about the lunch programs, the breakfast programs. So where we're at as of August 10th today is that we're getting out those free and reduced applications. I can't stress enough for everybody that qualifies to get those filled out. I know Mr. Arms getting those out to you. Get those out, get them filled out. Anybody who qualifies for free or reduced this year will be free. Okay, so it's technically called free and reduced right now, but it doesn't matter. If you're qualified for either one of those, are free. Right now, the kids who do not qualify for free and reduced are still lunch price kids for this year. So they will pay for their lunches. The challenge we'll have with that is the money exchanges, how we're going to do that. We do have an electronic system set up here. We'll promote that quite a bit. If we have students that are at home that are requesting lunch deliveries, because we do need to bring food to the remote kids as well, we're going to have to come up with a system with those parents who are cash kids at home to deliver that food to them as well. So free and reduced will be easy because we'll get those to sign up, we'll get the directions, bring it to them in exchange, just like we have all summer long. But the cash kids were free over the summer as well and during the pandemic closure in March to June. Right now, unless something changes, starting in September, the cash kids, the kids who aren't qualified for free and reduced, we'll have to work out the money system with them as well.
So if you're staying remote and need a lunch, then we're gonna have to figure out another busing situation to bus out lunches.
So that's already part of the busing. We have to deliver. Yes. We have to deliver. We have to target people that are unable to get here for sure. So yes, there will be an element. We may create a situation where they can come here and pick them up like they are right now. We just don't know if we're going to add that dynamic to what's going on here because we're going to have buses leaving in the middle of the day too and things. So depending on how many this is and what we've got to do, but the overall answer is yes, we've got to feed breakfast, lunch.
Can we get funding for that?
So just
For transportation?
so everything for transportation. I don't know the answer. I mean, we would put in everything we could for transportation aid. What they qualify us for in terms of the extra things, we'll have to see.
Give a COVID expense line.
Yeah.
So we're gonna need more staffing for that if we've got people in here making lunches and people delivering lunches?
So, no, I don't think so at this time. I think we're gonna be all right. We've got some other staffing things in here, some people internally here, monitors, things we have that we're gonna be able to use for some things with us as well. Buses are gonna be in between the routes, sort of, so we're gonna have to figure out, so we might deliver between 10 and 12, so that the buses are back by the 12 take homes and things from the elementary. So we're working out our systems with that. Is there gonna be more bus driver hours? Yeah, definitely.
Now, the children that are remote, that don't need a lunch, they have the option to not take it. So you're
Yeah,
not,
sure.
you're
Yeah,
gonna,
you don't have to, like right now, we don't have everybody taking, which is,
but you have to figure out who's gonna be, so it's a big waiting game.
so we'll get names out who's requesting, just like we did during, that's the one thing we got pretty good at between March and now is figuring out where we're going, creating the routes, creating the deliveries, packing things up so that we could get them there, combining some things, the breakfast and lunches, and creating meals that are able to be done in that way. So, Yeah, do the best we can with it. In terms of internal lunches, so we're working on a number of things here. Again, still defining a few things. It depends on how many kids are here, how many kids are leaving, how many kids we have total. But the idea behind it is we're probably going to deliver lunches to the classrooms in the elementary, so they'll eat in their classrooms. And for the high school, we're creating a couple different dynamics. First of all, we've taken all the tables out. There'll be desks in the high school, so they're going to eat at separated desks when we do use the main cafeteria. And we're looking at a larger room, actually a double room, as everybody knows, the 33, 34 room. If you're familiar with the middle school that opens up with a divider, we're looking at that potentially being a middle school area where we deliver the food down to them. So 7th and 8th graders potentially would eat right in that wing down there. 9 through 12 would eat down, if I'm pointing in the right direction, up to the high school, and they'll all be separated and they'll have desks in there, and we'll create staggered lunch.
Desk during lunch?
Yes, we can't separate them at tables. We have round tables, can't separate.
So I would assume, especially elementary, of course, I don't think you've ever eaten in an elementary classroom. Yeah, I think you're going to need some cleaners in the
Yes.
evening to do some cleaning.
Yes, so the eating in the classrooms, as Mr. Kendler is pointing out here, is creating a cleaning dynamic that we're going to have in the elementary for sure.
That big
Keeping
room
in
down
mind-
there, that double room down there is not carpeted, is it?
No.
No.
Because that's what happened over there.
Yeah, keeping in mind that we're going to have less kids here. So when I say we're in a classroom, we might have 10, 12 kids in that room. You might even have less if you have some half-day kids at that point. So again, specifics are tough right now until we know exactly what our numbers are. Once we know our numbers, somebody asked me a question if things could be adjusted if numbers will skew one way or another. We have more people. Certainly. So if we have more kids in one area than another, we may have to adjust what I'm talking about. But hopefully the initial survey gave us at least some idea to work with. So any other questions on food service right now?
Are you able to accommodate the teachers, like, breaks and,
So high school, yes. Elementary, that's gonna have to get staggered so that we can shift some people around, support staff around, teacher assistants, monitors, cover classrooms during those times. Yep, we're gonna have to do some staggered lunch deliveries and things. So, yep, to give them their lunch periods. So that's a challenge for sure. Any other questions on food service? Okay, so we started to talk about this. Another transportation. Our transportation assurances and notices are going to be mailed probably as soon as tomorrow home. And basically, similar to what we always do, or as we did last year, sending out our transportation requests with our locations, where our pickup and our drop-offs are going to be. This year, obviously, the added element, trying to find out who's actually going to put their kids on the bus itself and who's already planning on driving them to and from. We also are going to need those numbers when we get the numbers back for who's leaving midday in the elementary. That's going to be a variable to this. The other piece of it is on this transportation, there's a list of assurances that you realize that you'll be one to a seat other than with your brother or sister. You'll realize that we're going to be limited to somewhere between around 22. We may be able to go as high as 28, depending on if we have a number of siblings on that bus. And that they're going to wear their mask the entire time that they're on that bus. And that obviously that parents at home have done their temperature checks and check for symptoms before arriving on the bus and things like that. So by signing the transportation, they have to agree to all those assurances. They'll go out, understand the protocols and rules for riding transportation, and if they're able to accommodate those assurances, then obviously they can ride the bus. The bus routes are going to be developed based on the transportation requests. So once we have those, we have the options that the parents have taken. We'll start to organize the runs and the placement. That's why right now, as I mentioned last meeting, that I've got windows of time in the morning and windows of time in the afternoon, knowing that we're not going to all arrive here at the same time on both ends, or all at the same time. So we started with 45 minutes on both ends of the school day. We're able to shrink that because we're able to move things a little bit quicker. We'll do that. That'll only expand the academic time. But I think we can safely do this with 45-minute windows right now. So that's where we have it right now. To me, that's hopefully our worst case scenario right The regional transportation schedules. So we've had some questions about that, so I'll get into some of those details, but we have regional, when I talk about regional, we have BOCES, we have private school transportations, religious school transportations, if I use that, so forth. We transport other students to their school as well. So we've got to coordinate all of those transportations and things, and they have to follow all the same rules that all the kids here have to follow as well. So we also go to private agencies like United Cerebral Palsy, Christian Heritage on Route 5, the Christian School in Little Falls they go to. I don't believe we have any over here right now, but that would be another place. We are not going to BOCES right now. We don't have anybody there. So we have all of those. On top of that, we do have kids that go to our local BOCES region here. So some of them will be at CDA, some of them will be at the complex in East Herkimer. Those kids right now are scheduled to go Monday through Friday in person if they choose to down there for the students with disabilities. And kids that are in the college program, PTech, are going Monday through Friday as well in person down there if they choose to do so. So we will be bringing some kids 5 days a week down to there. CTE kids, and I'll just clarify those are the kids, the juniors and seniors who are taking trades programs down to BOCES. That's a 2-day schedule right now, so juniors are going all day to BOCES on Mondays and Tuesdays, and seniors are going all day Thursday and Friday. Wednesday's an open day down at BOCES for cleaning and all that kind of stuff according to their schedule. So those students will go their full days, and then all the rest of the requirements that they have will be plugged into the schedule here at West Canada Valley. Again, having the same options as all the other kids, in person or remote, depending on whether they want to do that. So that's a quirky schedule for us, where we're going to be working with individual kids on that because the BOCES schedule doesn't coincide with our every other day schedule. So, and that's just
Still miss 2 days of instructions because you're
Yeah.
not making them.
yeah. So we're gonna uniquely put that into the hybrid form basically. So they're every other day. We'll have to add a couple things into there for the missed day of here and go from there. The thought process for us in that, well, first of all, we get dictated regionally a little bit of how the schedule goes, number one, so it is what it is. But number two, when the kids, generally the kids that go down junior and senior year, not to underestimate the value of their schooling here, those kids that are juniors and seniors, that's a really important part of their education at that point. So for us to get a situation to get them 2 full days of hands-on with the training they're looking to go into is really, really important to everybody. So we're willing to work with the subjects. Some seniors at that point only have a couple of classes. Juniors will be a little bit more complicated for sure, but seniors generally are down to a couple in-school requirements with the BOCES program. So we're going to work with them. We're going to work with the families with those and come up with a good hybrid system if they want to be some in person. If they want to be remote, obviously we'll work with them as well.
The gym is down there too.
So for CTE, no, we'll have to get that taken care of here. For the PTech, like all day, 5 day a week kids are down there. PE services are all down there. Anybody who's 5 days regional, you don't have really.
Those kids that are going with juniors and seniors, they would have to get bused here at campus, and then they all get on a bus.
No. So we're hoping to be able to create direct runs from home to CTE and from CTE to home. We've done that already a little bit because we just by the way we've done systems, it's a little more complicated now, but we're going to be able to do that with the schedule. So we keep them isolated as a group. What I don't want to get into is mixing the soup pot that day down at BOCES and then mixing them in here. So I think we're going to be able to do that. So again,
Do we have a number for the kids? How many you have for PTech?
for PTech. Do you know PTech, Mr. Valderina? That's the everyday program. We like 7 or 8. Yeah, like 7 or 8 kids that are every day. But CTE is like 40 something, correct? Total juniors.
69?
Wasn't that many this year? Okay. All right. 60 something CTE.
I think it's 40 something.
That's a big number for us. So, yeah. So just give you an example. I'll just give you an example of CTE. So with 60 something kids, let's just say it's an even split. We're already overloaded. So we're 2 buses to CTE already.
And they're working on,
I don't even know how to.
they're working on getting kids to be able to drive down there.
Yeah, that's
I've been meeting with the
Yep.
BOCES principal, and they're looking at parking spots for the kids who are old enough and can't
Yeah.
drive.
Yeah.
To get them down to kind of alleviate some of the busing for the districts.
Yeah. So that's a good point you just made. So if we were to get enough kids, now the seniors are more, the juniors, because of the way the driving is, there won't be a lot of juniors qualified, at least for the first half of the year. They just aren't going to be old enough to meet the requirements. But seniors, we may be able to get in a situation where enough of them are driving, and we need the one bus. We get it down to a regular number. So we'll see how that plays out. So that's a good point. Cleaning protocols and schedules are going to meet. I said this in the meeting. You know, it's every day. We're supposed to clean the buses and disinfect them before the next day's runs. That's the minimum requirement. We're going to do it between runs when we can. There's going to be certain times where we just can't do it, but we're going to do it as much as we can and disinfect the buses in as much space period as we have in between. We'll create cleaning protocols and schedules for that. We already are doing that. The masks have to be worn at all times on the buses, regardless of anything. They have to be worn. As I mentioned, 22 to 28 on our large buses. The max right now is 22 with no siblings. If we get a couple that have siblings, we might be able to extend that as high as 28. Student drop-offs are right now the 45-minute windows I talked about, 7:30 to 8:15 for both parents bringing them and student drop-off of the buses. This will also include breakfast time. And then, 8:30 to 9:15 for elementary in the morning. So there's 45-minute windows for buses and parents. The pickup times, I've got 45-minute windows at the end of the day. Because we don't have to temperature check and do a whole bunch of things at the end, I might be able to shrink that down a little bit. We might be able to extend some academic period time. So that may shrink a little bit, but for right now, we still have the 145, 230 range, 245 to 330 range on the elementary. We may tweak that as we get a little bit closer to those numbers, especially with the high school. High school, we may be able to get them out of here a little bit quicker, which means we might be able to shrink that time and extend some academic time.
Where are they going to be for dismissal?
So
145 to 230. Where are they going to be?
yeah, so essentially they'll be in the room that they end that period in. So as we dismiss and do those things, so if they had my class, I was teaching, they had my class, that would be the last period of the day, they would remain there until their bus left. And then we'll dismiss them likely by buses or by certain areas, and we'll exit them out a couple different doors to get onto those buses. So that'll be a rolling dismissal as well. So we, like, for example, same thing as in the morning, the Norway and Skylar kids might be a little bit earlier because we got to get them in. They might be a little bit earlier, and we get that Norway and Skylar run out there quick so we can get back here with them. Again, those are things we're going to work out as we get there. But they'll remain in the room until there's nowhere to go. There's no hallways, there's no lockers. They don't have to go anywhere. They got everything from there, going from classroom to bus. So.
Now, how about the parent pickup and drop off? I know you said there's probably going to be a lot more parents bringing their kids, so it's going to be clustered.
So we've got a really good plan for the high school. The high school plan is the buses for the high school are going to use the elementary loop in the morning, our bus loop there, and the parent drop off will be in the high school loop in front. So the parent drop off and kids driving will come through that front door, and then the sports door on the other side where we come for basketball games and swimming and all that. That'll be the door for the bus drop off. So we're good there. But for the elementary, it's going to be a little complicated. So the elementary, we're going to have the rolling drop-offs and the regular bus loop in the elementary. We're going to continue to use the parent drop-off loop in the parking lot. We're hoping that we're going to be able to stack with giving them windows of time that everybody won't be there at the same time like we have right now because everybody comes at the same time. So we're hoping that's going to spread out. Where it'll become complicated is if everybody's showing up at 9:15 in the elementary in that loop and it gets congested, obviously with more parents. So we may have to tweak some of that. But for right now, we're going to try to keep things the same as possible on the elementary side and hope it's going to work.
Will there be a monitor out there?
So there's going to be a lot of people out there for right now. Yeah. So we may even work on temperature checks more extensively over there. We may have multiple different people where we can kind of roll the high school kids through in a couple doors, and we think we can do that. We may need multiple people monitoring out there, doing temperature checks, and things like that. And we even talked about Mrs. Holmes, some other staffing doing some temperature checks, so the quicker we can get them in the building. We don't feel we can push the distance out front of the building kids will be all over the place when they're little. So,
Who did you say would be doing the temperature check?
so right now, our 2 nurses, our 2 RNs are on definite temperature.
Yeah, but I mean, elementary coming in, you know,
Yeah, so we're probably gonna need additional door people to do that, so we're probably gonna train some people
who would do
on
that?
temperature checks. Mrs. Holmes wants to, so she wants to be out there to do some temperature
Well, yeah,
checks. So there's a couple people, we have our school psychologist, we have some other people that are available, we might have a teacher assistant, we train them, we give them the equipment, they can do it. I mean, if anybody, if you've been temperature checked, I say this, I've seen a young child could do it, they
yeah.
put it up there and just brings it, there's nothing complicated, we just need to have reliable people that'll identify the temperature at that point and notify, so we'll put reliable people there. I was joking, with the elementary, I think we can do a couple doors and stagger it, they think we're gonna need more people, so I'll go with them for right now, we'll see how it
It'll be a
goes.
learning process.
Yeah, so
As the kids learn too.
exactly, so I don't think by any means everything I'm talking about is gonna work perfectly right now, I know when we get here.
Trial and error.
Yeah, so we're gonna tweak things for sure as we get started here.
Are students going to have assigned seats on the bus?
Yes,
They are.
required, yeah, it's one of the assurances.
Do we have to maintain seats for people who bring their kids to school that can ride the bus?
So
Will those seats be marked off?
So here's the deal. On paper, and technically, yes, we're supposed to account for everybody that needs a ride to school. We are hoping that we have some ability to make that somewhat consistent, and we're going to try not to with certain buses. We're trying to keep some spaces open. That's what we're trying to do in the best of our ability. Now, we can't feasibly account for every kid every day because it would take me forever, and we know that not all the kids ride buses. So to do that is sort of an issue. So we're going to have to create some pretty definitive plans so we know a kid who's switching a bus on us can be much more difficult to do now. They may have to go on a bus that has an opening if there's an emergency situation where we've only got 18 kids on a bus and I got 4 seats open as opposed to their bus, which is already full. Those kind of dynamics are things I know we're going to have to keep working out.
Well, I can understand parents wanting to bring their kids.
Yeah.
In this situation, I can understand that.
Yeah.
Is there any way that we could have them sign off their seat?
Yeah, so we're kind of doing that, and then we're going to work with them as things change in their lives along the way. But for right now, we're asking them, for those people that know they're going to be bringing their kids to and from, we're asking them to kind of commit that that's kind of what they're going to be doing.
I'd like to know that last year or the year before that, how many kids we actually had that could ride the bus that did not ride it all year.
Sure.
Thank you.
Now, our staff, like 7:30 high school, middle school, high school, 7:30 to 2:30, so if they don't have a staff, doesn't have a class or anything going on at 1:45 that last period, they're not sneaking out of here, they're still here.
Yeah, they're here, because we're going to need them, yeah, they're here for their regular contractual times. Yep.
I just don't want to see you beating the buses out here like they used to sometimes.
The period, there's not a lot of free movement in the schedule in general.
Because they don't have any classes, or they don't have any kids or something that last period.
Yeah.
A lot of times, it used to be, they beat the buses out of here.
Yeah. So now they should be here regardless. They're assigned, that's an assigned period. Because those periods are for their remote visits too. So even if they don't have times to do that and they don't have kids, they should be working on their remote hybrid instruction stuff.
Right, they should be, yes.
Yep.
Did you say they're going to a 9-period day, or are they still a 10?
Is that what you have right now?
So we're going to an 8-period day with a 45-minute virtual at each end, which will be like the teacher's planning period / virtual period with the kids.
Check-in or?
So that 8 periods are going to be pretty tight for kids. They'll have their lunch and then they'll pretty much be in class most of that time, but they're kind of breaks at the end.
So it's a different schedule for sure than we're used to. There's not a lot of movement. It's a pretty full, just regular class schedule, and you're out of here.
I like the 8 period.
No more
I
study
do.
halls?
That 10 period was.
So there's not any
There's
there's not any true study halls for spaces where we need situations. We're looking at the auditorium for some polling places during time periods where we would have a period where we didn't have a placement for a child at that point in time, so it would be sort of a quasi study hall.
So we're gonna put the study hall monitor.
So we'd have we might have some other people, yeah, so there's some different things. The monitors, the monitors are gonna have some different duties this year for sure.
So you're gonna hopefully section that off if you're gonna give it that, right?
The auditorium?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got so once we get the numbers and we see what we're gonna have and when there's holes and schedules and where we have kids, we've gotta create situations, in those areas to section things off, space them out. Basically, they can work on their hybrid stuff, they'll have their computers, they have Wi-Fi in there, you know what I mean, so those kinds of things. So there won't be a lot of that, though, there really won't be.
Because we'd use it before the end of the day.
Yep.
Right? To
Yeah.
work,
Yep,
to
for
get
sure.
Dropped off and stuff,
Yep.
we could potentially use that.
Yeah,
time.
so those are quasi study halls, if you wanna look at them, they're in their class for their period that start with an end, but yeah, those are times where the remote construction things can be planned and worked on and. those
So that
kinds of
pickup
things.
time could actually be a study hall.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
we're sitting in
it
the
is.
room,
Yeah, except for some of the kids will be leaving, like, so like a kid that's a ways away, they may be leaving pretty quick. in
Well,
that
when you
time.
get this all done,
Yeah. I'll have them, you gotta prove the
it'd
wrong.
be a miracle, but I
Yes.
mean, if it gets all done, I truly would like to see what these teacher assistants are doing.
Okay,
I'd like to know what the assigned jobs they were given.
yeah, they're gonna have a lot to do.
That's good,
Yeah, they're gonna
because
have
they
a lot.
got off pretty easy from March 13th to June 26th.
Yeah, they got a lot.
Very easily,
I need,
and we paid them.
I need every hand I can do. Every hand.
What about the kids? I mean, if they had a study hall, I'm assuming it'd be something like in their core area of learning instruction. What if the kids have questions or need extra help? How are you gonna enable that? Would that just be more like virtual email asking questions? Because the kids probably won't have that one-to-one with the teacher.
Yeah, so like where they went to the study hall and went in to meet with a teacher to work
For
on
extra
something.
help or,
So that's a good question. The dynamics of that probably would have to be done through some sort of, classrooms and working on some things. Maybe those could be done, it's a really good question. Maybe those could be done in that morning period or the afternoon where they could hook up with that teacher remotely.
I mean, I know it's outside the school day, but do you think some of your teachers would hold like an office hour, 4
Potentially,
to 5, or, just
potentially we could look into some different things where we have, especially with the remote kids and some things like that.
I mean, you forget that the kids are gonna have
So,
that.
so there's a lot of creativity in terms of, what we potentially could do. I believe Mr. Conmore asked a question, don't talk too much about negotiations and open session, but that would be things we would talk about, what would be things we could do to accommodate those kinds of things that are part of that, so good ideas. Any other questions on the transportation piece? Okay, it's gonna be a big call. Again, I wrote out, I made a special note, these are all these disclaimers, subject to change depending on the number of riders and ways that we can improve the efficiencies of all this. So all these scheduling are what I have right now as of August 10th. Social emotional well-being, I wanted to have that, it's a really important part of this. We're gonna be working really diligently, and we already are with our social workers, our psychologists, our counselors, our principals, putting together an ability to identify students who need support, especially because of the quarantine, just general emotional health, and then hooking families and students up with both our local and regional services. So we do all these things, but I want to make sure that we have a clear, defined plan and that we're able to identify pretty quickly kids that may need more assistance than others. This has been tough on some people over this time period. So that's something I'm happy that we're moving forward with. I got a review of the school schedule. So right now it's the same thing I talked about at our last forum. The elementary has 3 options for instruction. Their paperwork is out. They have till Friday to declare what their option is at this point in time. We have full day in person, 9 to 3:30. Just basically, I wrote 9 to 3:30 only because that's really the time frames that we're in, even though we're probably be rolling in here at 9:15. You might leave a little earlier, but it's a full day. Half-day hybrids where we have the morning in-person session and the afternoon remote instruction. Again, I use those terminologies where we're going to clearly define attendance and instruction. So it's not, even the hybrid kids will have specific things they need to do in the afternoon. So a parent who's choosing that hybrid option will have to be prepared for the child to work in the afternoon during the regular school time slot. If they're unable to do the things they need to do, then those options aren't options for them. There's requirements for all those options. And the full day remote session is all day. Again, we'll have clearly defined in person and work times throughout that day. Again, the expectation is from those hours, that parent, that child that's in, especially in elementary, was able to work and do the things during that time slot. So it's not as if they're, if you're sending your child to daycare for the day, they need to be prepared to do the schoolwork during that school day that's there, because we're gonna be checking in. Well, they have to figure out a situation. Schoolwork that needs to be done during those hours needs to be done, so it's not a day off. There's, even in the elementary side. So those are tough decisions for families. That's why we wanted to go about doing the 3 different options, because every option fits everybody a little bit differently. But there are some, hang-ups with the remote and the hybrid. You've got some independent times and organization at home that you've got to be able to do to make that work. We'll certainly make it work here if you're here all day.
When's the hybrid kids eating? Are they eating?
So they're gonna get food on the go. So so just like we're delivering it, we're gonna get that to them and they'll take it home with them, yeah. Yep. Can't eat it on.
Can't eat it.
No, no
No, I
food.
know that,
Yeah.
that's like a day of drops.
Yeah.
I didn't know where to ask this, but obviously, with PE,
Yeah.
art, music, band, chorus, how are we doing those?
So I'll start just with elementary to start. So special areas, if you're referring to PE, music, art, we're going to be working on pushing into the classroom, arts on the cart, back into the rooms, doing the arts in the classrooms as much as we can. Music, instruction in the classrooms as much as we can. The singing piece is going to be very limited unless we can get them outside and spread them out a little bit when the weather's good. Same thing with PE. So PE, classroom instruction. We might be able to get some small groups in the gyms at times just to move them a little bit. And certainly when there's good weather, we're going to encourage to get the kids outside for the gym classes. The tough part will be when the weather turns on us a little bit. So we'll have to get creative with that. Those will be tough.
So as far as high school band and chorus,
Yeah.
it's not really.
So high school band and chorus at this time, there is no full band, full chorus, anything. So right now, it's basically instrumental instruction and vocal instruction, where they'll be scheduled in throughout the day to get their instruction in either their instrument and their vocal lessons. There may be some situations where we can create some small group type of activities for the kids. We might be able to do, some virtual things where they do a performance virtually and it's on the internet, those kinds of things. But those are all the things right now. So they're, the band rooms and so forth will be used for those smaller instructions. We can't use the instructional spaces that we usually use, are too small. So we need the bigger band room to spread kids out. If we have a couple kids playing trumpet, spread them out and so forth, they need 12 feet at least in there. Keep in mind, this is where all the shrinking comes into play, because we can't do this with all the kids. We're shrinking the building down a little bit here with numbers.
Is the pool gonna be empty for?
So the pool is closed right now as we speak.
Are we
so there's-
emptying it?
So there's no locker rooms. Did we empty it this year? We cleaned it last year, right? We do it every other.
Refilled it last year.
Yeah, we do it every other
So we
year.
have to keep it to maintain it.
Yeah,
Yeah, to keep the levels.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know how long. Let's put it this way: if September 21st they clear fall sports, that means potentially girls swim would be cleared at that point, and then we've got to deal with locker room situations. So right now there's no locker rooms, but if they're going to clear sports, they got to clear locker rooms. They can't have sports without locker rooms. So all those things are going to have to come into play. So right now there is no swim instruction, and there is no swim team as of right now.
I assume the fitness room is closed
The
also.
fitness center is closed as well. Can't use the fitness center at all. That's locked up for everybody right now. So middle school, high school has the 2 options that I mentioned. They have the hybrid instruction where we're alternating days of in-person and remote learning. They'll follow an A-B schedule, so you'll either be the A group or the B group. It'll be every other day, full days, 7:30 to 2:30, just like we have along with transition times. Again, we'll clearly define schedules that are in person, and I'm using the fancy words of synchronous and asynchronous, but those are basically in person and independent work times and things that they need to do with that. Attendance needs to be taken on the remote days, so even when there's some work being done, we're logging into the system to do that. It's creating attendance things. There'll be Google Meets that they need to meet up, and we're working on the remote schedules. There's some perfect world scenarios that I have in mind that I keep pushing on Mr. Broadbent. Depends on the numbers though. So if we get a decent balance of kids, quite honestly, then it's a little bit easier to do some scheduling and do some other things with that. The balance is off a little bit, and that's going to create some situations. So for example, I always use ELA 7, so English 7, where we typically might have 3 sections of English 7. Okay, the English teacher may have 3 different English classes throughout the day in English 7. If the numbers were to come out right, that teacher might have 2 in-person English 7s and 1 remote English 7. So during that remote English 7 session, they would be remote, kids that are at home and no kids in front of them, and they teach the class just like they taught the kids that are in person. Now, Mr. Broadbent's not laughing too much here because not everything comes out that clean and perfect, but it would be nice if it came out that way. It would make the scheduling, and so essentially you could create, I like to use the term the remote learning school we have here this year, where we create remote learning schedules throughout the day, and there's a remote learning period just plugged into the regular schedule. Those seem to work decently, that idea with core subjects. With some of the individual elective type subjects, those are a little bit more quirky, the arts and different things, art classes and other types of electives that we might have, those are a little quirky with that. So, but again, that's conceptually what we're trying to create.
Do you live streaming any instruction?
So in terms of kids in front of you and kids at home at the same time, there will probably be situations that we will need to discuss where that goes on. That's not optimal for a lot of reasons, not just because it's hard to have that screen, those kids at home, and then kids in front. So in any situation where I can create a remote section where the remote kids are getting their own class. So if I've got 12 to 14 remote kids in ELA 7, that can be a class itself. If there's situations though where we have classes where maybe I only have a couple remote kids and then I have a class that's in person, that might be the option that we need to look at. So I won't say in all cases yes. There may be situations where we have to do that simultaneously.
Do you have the technology to support that?
Yeah, so we feel we do. Again, this will be a work in progress itself. We don't think, if we can create schedules that do not have everybody live streaming all at the same time, then I think we're good. Do I think every teacher in here can be live streaming at the same time? No. But the schedules don't work that way anyway. Every teacher will be live streaming at the same time. So we're hoping, again, another puzzle piece, once we get the numbers, that we can create some staggering of when that has to go on during the day, which the system hopefully can. So again, I'm sure we'll have some, one of the issues with the remote is students that are in lower connectivity areas. Works well enough at times for Google Classroom, the work they're doing on the internet. It's a little bit sketchy sometimes when we're streaming. That takes a little bit more connectivity. So I expect a lot of work to have to be done to try to get that good for everybody that's choosing remote. So that's another thing to think about for parents as you're choosing remote. That's, when you're in an area, everybody knows where they live, what their connectivity. We're going to help them in any way we can to get that to the best it is. But the reality is I have to do some adjusting for some parents who want remote that don't have the connectivity that they need. So again, remote learning plan, I mentioned this has got to be a clearly defined section now that's a pullout from the plan. So there'll be a separate link to this part once we're done with it. The plan must clearly define when the in-person and the work times are going on in their classrooms where kids are independently working and getting attendance for working on things. We must develop plans that are consistent for people even with the internet access that's maybe not as good as somebody else. So we've got to really work on the equity issue. And we have to have that defined schedule. So everybody knows exactly what their schedule is, whether they're here, home, or both. Is really the key to this whole thing. Technology, I mentioned this already, the one-to-one devices for all students. We're in good shape for that. Common instructional platforms for students, we're working toward that. I mentioned the Google Classroom, some common platforms to log into, or there's one location for parents and students and so forth. That's an important part of the plan, to not be all over the place with that. I mentioned the internet assistance for people that are in tough areas for connectivity, and the stream, like the ongoing this summer. I have to say this, I've never had as much teacher, professional development, and work that we've had this summer. I mean, it is like daily, and whether it's in here, virtual, or wherever. The teachers have been all about this remote, getting it ready. They're nervous. They want to be able to do it right. They want to be able to do it right on day one. It's going to be a work in progress, but there's been an enormous amount provided. There's been an enormous amount of work to try to get themselves comfortable knowing that this is the situation we're in. And the thing that I've stressed with our staff, and I want to stress to the parents as well, is that no matter what we're saying tonight, at the blink of an eye, we could be all remote. So all these plans need to move back and forth. We could, hopefully it'll go a good way and we can do a little more as the year goes on. But we also have to be prepared that it could go backwards and we could be remote, with one phone call, kind of like a snow day. And then you could be full day remotes in a hurry. So we've got to be ready for all those type of adjustments as well.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there going to be a class for parents on how to use Google Classroom?
Yeah, so Mr. Bravo, you want to speak on that a little bit? You talked a little bit about that being a high priority for you.
Yeah, so we're looking at doing some kind of tutorials on the internet, possibly some in-person stuff, depending on the number of people or intense support. But a lot of stuff on the internet, YouTube videos created by us or other school districts that we've got to show them like step by step how to do the things they need to do to, be effective with working with children. So yeah, that's going to start happening end of this month, early September. Especially once they get into it and they realize they don't understand it, we'll have some of that stuff that they can go to, links on the website, all sorts of stuff. I got a lot of stuff put together so far. It's just a matter of kind of organizing that, putting it where it needs to be so parents can access it.
So that's an important, so that's been an emphasis for us. We're going to have to create and simplify for the parents. So that's the common platform, the one, so they're not trying to learn 7 different things at home. One area, they get familiar with that. They don't have to be experts on it, but they do need to be able to assist, especially with younger children. We'll need to be able to assist. We're even looking at a couple of systems that are a little more kid-friendly. Something that's called Seesaw. I've heard of that before. For the younger grades, it's a little bit more kid-friendly for younger kids rather than Google Classroom. So we're looking at those as well and having teachers look. That might be a better option for them. But regardless, we want to create common areas that we can help them with. We can train them. We can assist them when they're having trouble. They can call us if they're struggling. We can help them the best we can. So
Do you have that written down, put on the newsletter?
for that, we're going to put as much as we can in terms of all this technology and what's going on as we get closer to the end of the month. Yeah, so as much info as I can put to parents there I want to.
Thank you.
And you said earlier, I don't know if it's tonight or email or last week's meeting, the teachers are gonna start up with a Google Classroom of sorts.
Yeah, so I want them to use Google Classroom.
So we're not having a crash course.
Yeah, so we're already, so the professional development is all in here, knowing that that's, so everything we've been doing is associated with all the different things that thing can do. It's like a car. Google Classroom, for those that haven't used it, is like a car that has all these options that you don't ever even use, you don't even know you have in your car. But there's a million. So we're doing all these different things that can be done. You just keep expanding it. So there's a lot of things. You can learn as much as you want and it can be a very valuable tool. But as part of the transition to that as well, I want our teachers, and I've talked to them, and I'll talk more to them about this, using that as much as they can, even when we're in person, especially early on. So the more in-person Google Classroom things we can do, the easier it is when those kids are at home to do that. So we've got to get out at this point of the idea that, okay, they're here and I'm going to hand papers out, which is, we want to limit the paper exchange anyway. And we've got to look at it as, they're here today, but today's Google Classroom, our resources are there. So they need that day, the resources are there on Google Classroom for their kids to have at home as well. And the exchanges are done through Google Classroom. So we've got more digital exchanges.
And that way they're prepared if you have to go remote the next
Right.
day.
Correct.
Right there.
Correct. So the more we can use that, especially right off the get-go, the better we're going to be equipped if we have to go to home. Other questions on technology, schedules, instruction, any of that at this point in time? Again, public, if you have questions, email to Sheets. If you want to call me tomorrow, I can also answer questions for you on that as well. Just quickly, the regional instruction, VP Tech again, Monday through Friday in person at MOSI's. All special education students who attend MOSI's programs will be Monday through Friday, or any private areas that we send kids to for that reason. CTEs, 2 full days, Jupiter Monday, Tuesday. Seniors Thursday, Friday, the remaining parts of their schedule will be at West Cannon Valley. And all CTE students who receive special education services will receive them at West Cannon Valley. Athletics and extracurricular, I know everybody wants an update on that. There's not a lot to update right now. The postponement on all extracurricular and athletics at this point in time is through September 21st. Sure, they're going to be reviewing that in the upcoming weeks. As soon as we get the update, we'll provide those updates on that, whether we're open to begin this or whether it's going to be extended further. So there's not much to update on the athletics from the last meeting yet. Any other questions so far on the reopening plan?
Just the schedules. I know you're probably waiting to get the surveys back from who's here and who's not, but you have like an idea.
So typically kids get their schedules at the end of August as well, right before school. That'll probably be the case. It'll probably be shooting toward the end of August before we're able to get those schedules up on school tools and get that out through the parent portal and so forth. So a lot of those are going to be available digitally, I'm assuming, Mr. Broadbent. They can get them on the first day the kids are here, but we're going to have to provide those either in a mailing or digitally for them. But I mean, I think the truth of the matter is it'll be around, we're hoping it's going to be around the normal time that we have, which is the end of the month, just before school starts.
For the most part, schedules are done in June, and we're just tweaking them throughout the summer. We're starting August
Yeah.
14th.
On Monday, we get all your
schedule.
mail back in.
Yeah.
We're months, a couple months behind.
Keep in mind, we're plugging things in right now, so we're getting there, but we're going to end up moving stuff in when we get these numbers. So.
And then the elementary kids, placements and supply lists.
Yeah, so the placements are going to be really quick. So their class, their supply list, their teacher assignments are going to be really quick. Once Mrs. Holmes has the numbers, she's going to begin to give the teacher assignments and those kids. That's a little bit of a different dynamic. They're one cohort, one teacher, and so they'll be assigned to their small classroom with their teacher. That'll be sooner than the high school scheduling information for sure. That may be as soon as, I don't want to say they'll know by next week, but we'll definitely be organizing that
So
by next
are
week.
kids gonna be allowed to bring in their own school supplies? Because my understanding is teachers, if they have to pack up all their personal belongings to take home.
So school supplies are going to be interesting this year because of what we might actually need and what we don't need this year. So there may be specific things, we may be adding things like I've talked about, masks, things that are comfortable for the kids. There may be some additional things, but again, we're going to look to be much more digital than we were in the past right now to not have those exchange of things. So school supply lists look a little different, but for the elementary kids, once we have the teacher assignment, I'm assuming that'll all go out with them as
Like
well.
no one can share pencils or
Yeah,
crayons.
there's no trading.
Yeah.
You get a pencil, we're going to have to.
Yours.
Yours, yeah, we have to
But they can
restrict.
bring them in from home.
Yeah, they'll be able to bring things like
I
that,
didn't
as
know
long as
about
nobody
that.
else is using them,
Guidance
yeah.
from there.
Yeah, there just won't be a lot of sharing and collecting of things like there used to be. Any other questions on the opening plan as we speak? Again, I expect further updates as we go into the next week or so. And again, I'll be announcing those next parent opportunities soon as well.
Are the kids gonna have any kind of opportunity to socialize at all? Because this kind of looks like every day is like you're an ISS. I mean, pretty much,
So the socialization piece will come in their natural form of socialization when they're in the rooms 6 feet apart. But your natural areas of interaction of lounges and study halls and cafeterias, cafeteria will offer an opportunity. They're going to be 6 feet apart in their desks, but they'll still be in the same room. There'll be some opportunity, but you don't have the hallway. You'll have lockers. There's very, and that's what I think I wanted everybody to know, and I still want them to know. To start this year, and hopefully things will get better. This is schoolhouse stuff right now. I mean, this is school, strict health restrictions, limited movement, poor instruction, classroom instruction, and get you home safely. That's what we have right now. So yeah, it's limited. That's
I
the
just
bubble.
wonder if there's anything teachers could do, just even for a couple
Yeah.
of minutes to kind of like
Yeah.
pick it up for them a little, or
I think you're making a real valid point. I think we've got to create some situations where it's safe for some socialization where we can, especially with the younger kids.
Maybe that's where, the social emotional team
Yeah.
can come up.
Yep, those are great points. But we certainly have to get creative in a safe environment for sure.
That's some of the professional development that we're gonna kind of just try to find ways using Google Classroom to have some of that stuff happen that normally, may not under circumstances. A number of teachers have got some really good ideas that they're sharing with our team.
I think to a certain extent, if I were just the younger kids are the real concern because they learn so much with the socialization at a younger age. That's the biggest concern I have for everybody right now with that. With the older kids, I'm worried about it, but back in the day, your socialization happened at school. Things are different now. These kids socialize in a lot of different ways now that aren't necessarily face to face. So I think I'm less worried with them. They seem to get around, socialize, and do the things they need to do to make that happen outside of school too. So younger kids are tough. That's to tell kindergarten, first and second when we're trying to teach them socialization skills that you got to stay apart and not share and do these things. Those are, that's polar opposite of what we do with primary level kids. So yeah,
I'm a struggle myself.
hopefully it'll get better.
Anything else? All right, state audit. Can you update us on that?
Yeah, so we've been selected, I mentioned too, we've been selected for a state audit. Good timing for us this year. It's our turn in the state. So we have begun the surveying process with this. Do you want to speak at all on this right now? What's going on with it, the process?
They've started the initial phase of interviewing, like Mr. Shepardson, Mr. Sloan, or Mr. Schultz, myself, the two girls in my office, the internal auditor. They've had phone interviews with all of them. This is a totally different audit than this auditor actually has even done because it's all virtual, because they're not allowed to come to the districts. So it's all on the phone, it's on Google, it's on the internet meeting, face-to-face stuff. I sent them the data files today actually, and they have to review all of that, where normally they would be in the office next to me and they would just come in and get files. They come in and ask me, can I have a copy of this? Can you give me a copy of that? Now it's all online. So she emails me or she calls me and she tells me, can you send me samples of this? Can you send me samples of that? Now they have, as of today, they have our data files from all of 1920 up to current day, payments, receipts, payroll, everything. And they're gonna go through it and then they'll pick the area that they're going to actually audit. So they'll focus on one area once they've reviewed all of the data combined with the interviews that they've conducted with the different staff members. And to top it all off, our auditor is going out for surgery on Wednesday, so everything's gonna pause for 2 to 3 weeks. And which I told her I was fine with that because there's chaos here. And our regular annual audit is next week. So we have the state audit going on, plus the annual audit is next week.
And the question for briefly, which is to give a,
She's very easy to work with.
more
and she's-
financial stuff
yeah.
and explain how we have the warrant process in detail and we get that sheet once a month if there's been any PO things. So it's kind of just like that. It wasn't very long.
Yeah, she's been very good to work with so far.
How long does that audit usually take?
Well,
Which is
typically it's 60 days to 90 days, but because of the virtual part of it and her having to pause for the surgery, it could be up to 4 months.
Any other questions on that?
Yeah, don't rush the state.
Right.
I'm hoping that they're gonna give us a little leeway because we were willing to do it now, because we were like 1/5 or 6th school.
Yeah, she was very
The
appreciative.
rest of them were like, no way, we're not doing it right now.
So we're gonna try to take advantage of our
Willingness
to work with the state right now to do that. So like she said, everything seems to be going well. She's gonna identify one area. The last audit they did here was the IT, the computer, the technology security audit for us. So it won't be that. I know it won't be that. It'll be something else.
Yeah, and they did the retirement audit at that time too, and she said they are gonna be doing the retirement audit again, because they have to do that every so many years. So it could be a payroll, could be health insurance, could be.
All right, the ESSA plan update.
All right. Mr. Broadbent, I'll let you talk a little bit about that. Your plans in and been approved, so let's talk a little bit about that, and then we've got one other piece you and I are working on together to get done here.
Yeah, so the step plan, sent it in on July 15th, and they sent it back with a few changes, but not many. More dates, they wanted to narrow some dates down, wording of some stuff and some numbers. But, so I changed it, sent it back, and it was approved. There's a lot of things in our SEP that we're gonna have to change again, like the other documents Mr. Shepardson was talking about, it's a living document. They have field trips in there in the spring, which probably won't happen, but we put them in there because, by some chance, it goes in the right direction. We'd like to do some social emotional building type things with the 7th and 8th graders, kind of mentoring stuff. And we have a mentoring program that we're gonna be doing with 7th and 8th graders, which is gonna have to change because we're gonna have to meet with the teachers daily during study halls or weekly. And that's not looking like that's gonna happen. It might happen more through Google, or we may have to hook up teachers who already have the students in their class instead of ways. Those are some of the key things. The STAR program through the SEP is going to be initiated through the 7th and 8th graders. So it's going to be extended from elementary school, the testing, so we can get some good data as far as their English and math. And hopefully that will help with our state test scores also, as that practice. If there's any specific questions regarding the SEP.
So the SEP is a living document as well, as Mr. Broadbent just said, so we'll have to post that on the website, correct? We post on the website our plans, am I correct with that or no?
Yeah, the SEP and the SEP.
Both are posted. So we'll get you, once those are pretty finalized, I'll get you hard copies of those as well. The DSEP is due Friday this week, I think, 14th.
Yeah, you extended it.
Yeah, I got it, so the 14th. So we're basically done with that as well, so we'll submit that this week. Hopefully that'll get accepted, and then once we have those both done. So they didn't give us much leeway on those type of things for this year. There are COVID sections in there that we had to adjust to, and the other one we'll have to as well. But we'll get those finalized and get those together. And those are our plans in place, and depending on how the year goes, what we're gonna do, obviously, we'll have to make some adjustments so that those plans work with the current system on there as well. Any questions on either of the updates for the district plans?
Okay, universal pre-K.
Okay.
So did we just find this out?
All right, so universal pre-K, answer is yes, we just find this out, yes. So universal pre-K is run under a state grant, correct? Okay, through both. So, well, we use these, right, but the money itself is a state grant. So the money that we get annually, and this adjusts a little bit, it goes up a little bit here and there, but for this year, the grant, this past year, this grant was $87,204, correct?
It's been that for several years.
Okay, so the grant money is $87,204, all right? Our cost for our pre-K program, which is half day morning, half day afternoon, as we know, one classroom, costs us about $113,460, should you say, about 43 cents. So that gives us a gap of $26,256.43 is what we fund in our pre-K in a typical year. Okay, is everybody with me so far? Here's the problem. We are not, or nothing is moved forward at this point with the $87,204 for our district in terms of pre-K grant.
Why is that?
State does not have that in their Office of Budget. So some items in the state budget have gone through the Office of Budget and are sitting there. We might not have gotten them yet. They might be holding them, those kinds of things. The concern right now with pre-K is the $87,000 is nowhere. It's not through the Office of Budget. It's nowhere, which gives us the idea that that's not there. So, I don't want to specify districts, but there are even some local districts that are in the millions of dollars that they get for this, that they're becoming aware that they were expecting to get 1 point whatever million for pre-K, and they're not getting that as of right now. So the discussion tonight is two levels of this. One, universal pre-K in COVID situations as we speak anyway. We've talked about how challenging universal pre-K is going to be anyway. We have to limit the class sizes. 4-year-olds or 3-year-olds that are going to turn 4 before December 1st are in that room. That's one aspect of it. Registration took place before COVID. We did a registration. We've had a few people drop. I spoke with BOCES today about it. So we're at about 12 in the AM and less than that in the afternoon. So I think there's a total of maybe 16, 17 total kids right now that are still on paper signed up for pre-K. But I've got concerns, at this point. I've got concerns about pre-K in a general sense, for safety procedures and COVID procedures and things like that. But on the same token, you're looking at, you're looking at an $87,204 cost that you're not budgeted for.
He is not in the budget.
Speaking of budget, we have, last year, we got a fund balance or any of that stuff figured out yet?
I
What
won't
we
know
did?
that until the auditors finish next week. Have a better idea after they're done. I will have the number after they're done.
Now, other schools have canceled their pre-K programs.
Yep.
Herkimer is one.
Yep, Herkimer canceled theirs. Some of the schools canceled right away even before they knew about the funding because they were just safety issues. Yep. There's some local districts, a lot of the local districts have. There are some local districts though that are moving forward. There's some local districts that are going to try it, especially the smaller districts, if we're going to keep the cost of it. So the question lies with a couple different options. So not to create such a black and white situation. I don't have a definitive answer at this point in time to say we are absolutely not getting the grant money. Although typically we have the grant filled out already, it's already in there and we're already doing it, it's done, completed, all done and ready to go. There's nothing right now. There's no money in the budget, no money in the office of budget. It's allotted for it right now for universal pre-K. There's nothing there. So if something were to change in that aspect of it, then we certainly could restart that. One of the things that has run through my mind at this stage of the game is a initial postponement. We've done a lot of things with that. Said for right now, we're going to notify pre-K parents that pre-K as of right now is postponed until we receive further information in regards to not only the safety things related to young kids, but also in regards to the money that funds these programs for school districts. I don't know what your thoughts are on that piece of it or your thoughts today. I don't want to diminish universal pre-K is a really important long-term piece for sure. I don't know if I'm ready to say we're 100% going to give up on it just a second, but it's also something that could potentially be restarted if things were to get better or funding were to come into play. But I do want to be clear that at this point in time, just don't see that. Don't see it.
You don't see the funding coming in at all?
I don't right now. It's interesting to see that it's not because pre-K has been a big push by the state of New York. They've pushed pre-K, they've pushed full day pre-K, they've done a lot of things. So the only hesitation I have is that because I know it's been an important part of the governor and that's something that he's wanted. So I don't know if there's an oversight. It doesn't seem like there would be an oversight on that. I have heard no inclination that funding is going to be there. I've had us reach out to a number of different sources, get the same answer, it's nowhere.
The state budget's in a crisis.
Yeah, so, that's an area that probably some money can be drawn back at the state level at this point in time. So, if we associate it with money's there, we have pre-K, and if money's not there, we don't have pre-K. We certainly can do that. I can certainly postpone that. We can send out notifications that we're going to potentially suspend that for right now until we hear more, and then something were to change, then we could revisit it again and go from
And you
there.
might wanna do that sooner than later, because
Yeah.
parents are gonna need to know.
Yep. Yep.
What they're gonna do with their child.
Yep.
You know, if you're getting them into a private one, if there's anything available, or.
It's gotta be done as
Daycare.
soon as
What's the,
tomorrow.
also, you said we had 17 on paper,
Yeah.
but what is the space size for the 6 foot that you could really do in the
Yeah.
morning and afternoon?
Yeah, so we've used the number 12, so we notified both. So the interesting part about the way we run pre-K here is that it's done through BOCES with BOCES teacher, BOCES teacher assistant. BOCES oversees it, and it's in our building for our kids. So, so they do all the notifications and things like that. But I spoke with them today. I told them it was on the agenda for tonight. That there's a chance that we're gonna have to, discuss the fact that this may have to be suspended for now until we get further information from the budget office, and also suspended potentially for, just the overall trying to maintain the safety concerns with masks at that age and things like that. So, so that's where I'm at with it. And I guess before making those kinds of decisions, I certainly want all of our input on that. And if we're gonna do that, that we're in support of suspending that for right now until we receive further information. And then I could send out the necessary notifications.
What will happen with those teachers? I know they're not ours, but there's gonna be a lot of pre-K teachers without a job this year.
So right now, yeah, the answer is yes. So BOCES will have to make their own decisions whether they have alternate plans for teachers if there isn't a pre-K or a teacher assistant. I don't know that. Yeah, but they're employed by Herkimer BOCES, so they'll make decisions on that. Obviously, the districts that are canceling it that house their own pre-Ks made their own decisions on what they wanted to
It's
do.
on the beach, isn't it? There's one teacher and one teacher assistant.
Yeah. Yep. Good morning, afternoon, yep.
I believe Herkimer incorporated theirs into the classrooms.
Did they? Yeah. So Herkimer has their own employees probably where they're not BOCES
Yeah.
employees. So they probably said, I'll take them as my normal teachers and
If you
redirect
don't
them.
have it, BOCES gonna have to pick them up. Or have something for them, or
Yeah.
say that's it.
That's that's not our decision on that because they're not employees of our district. So, they're just supply for the program.
We're not under contract, well, she's right down for a program.
No, they just run the grant and employ them, so they're aware, they know what's going on. They know that there's a chance that these pre-K programs, Frankfurt also runs through BOCES, they're on hold right now too, kind of. And I think they're gonna put things on hold probably with the money as well. They're in the same sort of general ballpark of money as us.
I kind of like putting it on hold. Let's navigate the COVID world
Yep.
along with the budget world.
Yep.
Instead of just saying we're done, because we could always pick it up in October or
Yeah.
January for half a year.
Yep.
But when it's an unfunded at 87,000, and I know we talked a couple months ago about how we have to start strategizing, because we don't know what the governor's going to do month to month with the state budget and pull. He's going after healthcare and education. So I think we'd be just maybe talking good stewards right now. And I know it's a horrible situation because many families want this, but even just talking about our reopening plan, the kids that are in K through 12 aren't even having a normal experience. So that's just me. That would be my recommendation. But any other thoughts out there on the opposite? Or
I say postpone it.
Yeah.
If you don't get the grant, shoot, gone.
And I think that's the best way to do it for now. If something were to change and there was some push for that to be funded back into things, and then I would bring that back and
Jesus.
revisit it, but I just,
Outrageous.
yeah, so I just don't see it.
I have 17 kids.
it's just sad that we're in the decisions we're being faced with.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really want a 4-year-old to think this was a normal school
No.
anyway, or monies. Take them at night.
Okay, so at this point, we'll get the notifications out and I'll inform BOCES and we'll move forward with our pre-K announcements and so forth and get that taken care of as well.
Hopefully parents can get
Yeah,
their kids.
we'll work with them on some different things too, to see if we can assist with anything.
Driver education.
Okay, so we started out broad, and you'll see tonight we're starting to get specifics to talk about. So as we get closer to school starting, we're starting to bring up some other things. So driver's education right now, that was suspended at the end of last year because obviously the closure, there was no car. There is no permission to have driver's education right now at all. So driver education will not be offered now. If things change as the year goes on, then potentially we could do some things. Glenn, do you have anything else to add? I mean, is that basically it?
We do have some kids that need some driving from even last year, so if
Yeah.
it does open up, we're gonna prioritize finishing up those kids so they can get their hours in the car. I know Mr. Youngs is eager and willing to do whatever needs to do this once it gets started, whether it's multiple nights or whatever. But it's just a matter of once we're allowed to do it. I mean, you can't social distance in a car, so it may be a while.
Give them a bus to drive.
So, yeah. So
Take the lunches out.
Yeah.
So the important point is we've got some last year hangers going on with this that we need to complete. So we've got to focus to get them completed because they've done quite a bit of it. We've got to get that done. So the idea, if we do get some permissions or some relief from the regulations to do that, then we'll try to get them done first and then go from there. But I just want everybody to be aware that they're along with the pool being closed, there's not driver's education. The driver education instructor will be reallocating to teach some different things that we need him to teach for now.
They can't do any like the paper end of things, classwork.
So it's a good question. We've talked about that. The problem is with no end in sight,
You're just putting a bunch of kids hanging, and then you won't have enough time to get them all to drive once it finally opens up. So you'd just be delaying everything anyways. So it's better to use him in other areas so we can reduce class sizes and make it more comfortable.
so it's a really good point. Classroom pieces, but with no, I just don't feel at this point that we've got enough in sight that we're going to get that driving done for them. Which if without that they can't get it. So at that point they're getting no car and nothing out of it. So
Hopefully spring semester.
it's got to be our hope that we be able to offer it by the spring semester potentially.
We still keep the car with the
Yeah,
lease.
cars and leads, so we got it.
We don't actually have to do one yet, it's supposed to be here this month. Done back order because of COVID.
To grab it because you use it as like a company car.
Deliver lunches.
We might need it.
Yeah, never know.
It's one of the meetings, and then it's-
Any other questions on that?
Full perk.
Okay, our Board of Education goals, I know I sent out an email yesterday, I think. I looked at it and I know we kind of use the same, but just, again, my opinion is I think they're very general, they're very global, which is kind of what you want, goals global, and then you can strategize down into your more attainable, but that kind of where DJ will put his goals more attainable from our board goals. I wrote COVID down, but again, when I looked at these, COVID fits into all of this stuff that we're doing this whole school year being differently. So does anybody, did you have any suggestions, any changes? Which I'm very open to. Nothing? Nothing? So I think I do a motion.
Yeah, so you can take action on your board goals. If you're good with those, you'll adopt those goals for this year. And then obviously I'll align my goals with your goals.
For the next September
Yep.
meeting, okay. So I need a motion to accept the Board of Education goals for 2020 to 2021. Shauna, first, Pete, second, all in favor? Alright, thank you. Okay, also in my email yesterday, the board vacancy, we're gonna hopefully get this kind of right. We have a few options in front of us. One option is we can appoint to use the ballot from our June election, and appoint from the next one in line, for the votes. And that would be a 1-year term, just until May, and then that seat would go back up for vote to finish off the 2-year. That's our one option. Another option is that we would do a special election, which we get candidates again, right? Then we have to do a paper ballot vote again, all the mail ballots, and then we do another whole election. If we go that route, do they finish the
They-
full
yeah.
2.5
So
or
if you
whatever?
run, you have basically two options. You can appoint somebody for the remainder of the year. I'll use you as an example, Mrs. Schultz. Mrs. Schultz was appointed last year and completed the year, but she had to run again if she wanted to be on the school board. So you can do that again and fill out the rest of the year, or you can run another election and get petitions out again and do the candidates and things like that, and then hold the election, and then that person would complete the remaining term that's vacated. So whenever that election got done, they complete 2.5 or whatever,
The
whatever. the
remainder
time-
of this year and then 2 years.
And then 2 more years in the term. And if you do nothing, which is not really an option, the district BOCES superintendent appoints the board member for you. So you really have 2 options, whether you want to appoint somebody or you want to run an election.
Now, why would you have to do the absentee ballot again, or the mail?
If we choose a special election, because they have to go get petitions, run,
Yeah.
it's another full pledge. We have to
Right.
do all those ballots, because you can't do it in person.
So,
We can't do it at the one yet.
So the question would be is if you choose to do an election, I'd have to look into whether in person for a school board vacancy would be permitted for us to do that. Mrs. Sheets, the BOCES, the Remington vote that is on our, we have that on the
September 29th.
September.
Is that an in-person vote, September 29th?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, so,
So there's potential that could be permitted to have an in-person
Well,
vote.
they also did an in-person for their budget.
Did they the most recently? Okay.
it was like a month ago, right?
Their
That
second
was
vote,
over 1,000 people.
the second one, not the first one.
Second one.
The second one they were permitted. So those would be things that I'd look at. If you left tonight and said you wanted to run another election, I would get all those details for you to do that.
Would we wanna do that if we had like 7 people, so if we go with the next one that was on the ballot, we got the votes, that person didn't want it, we could go down to the next person under them, would that be? Cause they already showed an interest.
We might have other people interest too, if Charlie's not here. Charlie is obviously very popular at the high vote, correct? Somebody else might have ran, could have the opportunity to
We
run.
actually vote for someone else, those that voted for Charlie would have their say in the second election.
Just, I think if we did a special election, it's probably 60 to 90 days before we would have somebody versus appointing off the election that just happened in June. We would have somebody
Is it 60 days?
now that could just fill until May. And then we do all that, because then you got, I know we have to bring, tellers in and there's costs there.
There's a 45-day posting in the paper, and 30 days prior to the vote, they have to have the petitions. But it has to be advertised 45 days ahead of the vote.
How soon can you act on it? Doesn't Charlie, once he puts his resignation in, which is in what, the 4th? It's legal, is it signed now and all
We
that stuff?
accepted it.
Is it, well, accepted it, but it wasn't signed, correct? When it was first submitted, was it? But anyways, doesn't he have so long to pull that back? Even though that he moved, once you submit your resignation, I believe you got 30 days or something to pull that back, so you can't act on it for so long.
I'd have to check on that.
Yeah, it's right here, the resignation shall take effect upon the date specified in the letter. If the effective date is specified in the letter of resignation, such date shall not be more than 30 days subsequent to the date of the
30 days.
So that's just 30 days.
30 days.
You can't resign more than 30 days.
Right, but he can also pull it back if something were to happen and he could come back. I don't know if it's 2 weeks, I don't know if it's 30 days, I don't know what it is.
I get that clarified too, but I don't know the answer to that question. If he has time if I have to wait, if we have to wait for that amount of time before we can start the 45-day election piece, if we choose to go that route. Like I said, this is a sole discussion by you guys, and I'll just, myself and Mrs. Sheets will move forward with whatever you guys decide on that.
Did we wait for when Mrs. Murphy left and we took Sean? No, yeah, Sean's out.
The last time we had a vacancy, you appointed Sean.
But did we wait the 45 days?
The 45 days is just the posting for that's just
Oh,
for
okay.
the appointments are completely different, because you're appointing just for the remainder of the term, and you're gonna run an election. all you're doing is filling a gap between now and that point.
I mean, I think we take the next person in line. Why would we spend money to run a whole new election? If anybody's interested, they either should run or they can run in the next election.
Again, where people run to because they didn't have to go out and do like work.
Right.
You know, so you had more people doing it because they didn't need to go out and get their signatures.
Let them get a signature, and they can campaign. The last group on the list, you look at the last group on the list, not one of them ever sat in that gallery back there, not one of them. For how many years?
Right, and whoever runs is gonna be the same vote, because no
Nobody
one goes
does.
to our
Well,
board meetings.
Well, so be it. But I mean, if they're so interested, why don't they come to some meetings? Janine came to every meeting for how many years?
About 5.
I came to 20.
Right. But, and I understand what you're saying, but right now, I'm just saying, if we go special election, no matter who runs, no one has been coming to our board meetings at all consistently. That would, only when they started to get interested in running, we saw them right before election time. So are you, so I guess I need to know everybody's opinion so we can make a informed decision. So Shauna, what would you like to say?
I'd like to do a special election.
Okay,
Election.
I'm okay with going on the list. We gotta cut some money there. That's one way to cut money. Got 5 people to go down through the list.
arson, any idea?
Special election is they fulfill the rest of his term.
Yeah, so you'd be, whenever the election got done through the rest of history.
You know how many seats up last time?
Right.
There was 2 3-year and then the 1 2-year term.
Was there 5 more people?
Because we had a total of 4 more, because we had a total people, 7 people, were you correct?
There's 1 2 3 4 more on here. I'm, just for me personally, I'd go whatever you guys sway, but I'd just be more game for just appointing the next person just to get us through with everything and try to go out to more special elections and just put it up for both of May, but that's my opinion. So,
If it didn't just happen, I would go for the special election, but it literally just happened, so why are we gonna spend this money? We don't need to.
That's what happened to Sean.
He was sworn in, took his oath. If he hadn't took his oath, I would have said that. But at this point, he was sworn in, he was a member. I guess I'm gonna say special election.
alright, so we're kind of 3 and 3. We're at an impasse, never been there before. We know what we do for an impasse. No,
You have to make a decision.
I'll make the decision.
Well, no, I mean, or you as a group
Yeah.
need to make a decision, you know what I mean? Like, you just have to,
Somebody's gotta go one way or the other.
you have to come to a decision. That's where the appointment thing comes from the outside. If the board couldn't come to a decision on what they wanted to do. So I asked that question, just all different options, 3, and how that all works, just so that you guys had all the information you needed to make your decision on what you wanted to do, so. One way or another, somebody's gonna fill the seat, you can't leave it. You don't have enough time to leave it empty, we're not close enough to the May election to leave it empty. I guess is where I'm going at.
And we have a lot of stuff. We have a special meeting in August. We might have a couple more community meetings. Schools open up in September, so I mean, I'm just looking at it as getting somebody in here now as another board member to help navigate those decisions. That's just why I would be more pushing to go off an election that just happened in June. this way. We may have to go to the right policies to have.
I think, but you're gonna table it, and I can go with the legal pieces from there and see what you got from there, and see what your limit is on a decision. You know, I don't know what your time limit is on a final decision before it gets moved. I can call and make sure I get you the legal information on that, that we're split right now on what we wanna do. And then I'll give you the legal information, and you guys will go from there with it,
Okay,
so.
are we all set with that then? Get legal information? Okay. All right, now we have announcements. August 31st is our, special, right, we're gonna do a special board meeting. We're gonna do a building tour so we can have a, time to see what all the classrooms are looking like in preparation for opening day. And we'll be here at 6:30. And then we may probably have a meeting, so we find things we're gonna have to do. September 14th is our next regular board meeting in September. And then September 29th is our BOCES Remington vote from noon to 8 here at the school, right? It's interesting.
We don't have to be
And that's
back here.
open?
Yeah, as I said, that's interesting that it's open. When you have to be, appointments to come into the school, it's just interesting. Okay.
But they also had a very good plan. You may wanna check with them. Get them in and get them out,
In terms of their revote,
because they did not go out the same door they came in.
oh, okay, 2 locations.
How much will the revote cost?
We're paying election dollars.
We gotta pay for people who like what typically noon to 8 and then to count all of that, so.
So if you're doing the in-person, you have to mail the absentees out, we'll go back to regular if that's all legal for us to do all that part of it. You may have some more absentees probably for people that don't, if there's people that don't feel comfortable coming, I would say there may be some extensions. I'd have to ask all the election laws right now what they're. But it wouldn't be a full, if you're doing the in-person, it wouldn't be the full mailing situation. So,
How many tellers do we have during the day? Like how many people would be?
You have to have at least 2, so it would be $24 an hour per hour. So 8 hours times 24 hours. 20 hours.
Right, public comment, do we have any? No public comment. Okay.
Big interest.
Huh?
Big interest.
I just had a quick question too from the board members now, back here, my role, communication. I'm gonna go back to email communication with you all. I just wanna make sure is that the best way. Cause usually what I'll try to do is get our board packets and stuff, I'll shoot out an email. You guys can email me anytime after you get your board packets, any questions you have. Cause then what I'm gonna do is formulate those for DJ. And you'll all be in that email so you see all that. So that's how, I just wanna make sure that's how I wanna communicate. And then just have my phone number, email, just shoot me anything you want anytime. So now I need, also I did pass around a thank you card to the board members from the Johnson family. Very, very appreciative of everything we did at the 2020 graduation ceremony. So thank you to all those that were involved in making this happen for the Johnson family. So I passed that card around, so I like to keep that. Now I need a motion to go in executive session for appointment personnel matters, including review and appointment of employees and contract negotiations. Shauna first, and Heath second, all in favor? All right, thank you. How do you know?
You're
appoint
correct.
anybody
You're all
to
set.
the clerk person.
You might at the end here, yeah, so. Obviously a highly confidential document.
Online.
Yes.